Hey guys, welcome back. Just 2 nights ago on Monday in our live stream, we told you guys, heads up, AMC is likely going to pre-announce their earnings this week, possibly well ahead of the first week of August. And sure enough, today we got that pre-announcement in pre-market. And I know some of you have questions about why was the stock halted. We're going to talk about that in this video. In this video, we'll also talk about the why. Why did they do the pre-announcement? And of course, you know I want to talk about the numbers. How does this preliminary earnings stack up to what we were expecting here on the channel and what the market was expecting, and what the heck is going on with the stock price? If that sounds like something you're interested in, let's get right into it. All right, I want to talk with you first about why AMC might have pre-released their earnings today instead of waiting till August 2nd or 6th, whatever the date was going to be. Was that something devious? Were they trying to get one over on you like you guys were DMing me asking? No, I'm sure it was not that. May has some ideas that she talked about on Monday. So did Sparky, and none of them had to do with evil CEOs. They have to do with market regulations, rules that companies have to follow. May sent out a tweet today going over some of her ideas. Number one, think back to the debt deal that was announced on Monday. That was a complex financing deal. There's a prospectus and a press release on the refi. If they were to report as regular in August, they would enter the quiet period and not be able to talk about that refi deal. You'd only do that if you truly weren't in any way interested in being an investor-friendly company. Number two, reasonable care. The refinancing likely required certain discussion of financial statements interperiod, and a lot of folks were involved in those discussions since it was anyone representing any of the lenders for the 2026 debt, the one that needed to get restructured and pushed out. That is a lot of people to keep track of as it relates to material, non-public information. And it is smarter and legally safer for the company to go ahead and pre-release the earnings rather than take the chance that someone out there between now and August is trading on inside information relative to all of the discussions that happened during the time that they were doing that refinance paperwork. Now, you don't have to believe me, and you don't have to believe May either, but you should then take it upon yourself to go read the SEC regulations that public corporations and their executives must follow regarding the release of material non-public information to other parties, and their requirements to then make sure that the public has immediate access to that same information. This was not some big conspiracy. This is the company doing a legal cover its ass to make sure that they're following SEC regulations. It's really very simple. Sparky, on the other hand, had a similar idea, but a slight twist on it. It's the same point 1 and 2 that May brought up, but he said that if the bondholders, the debt holders, did not have access yet to AMC's expected Q2 numbers, AMC wanting to sell some more of them on the new debt deal would not be able to talk to them about those numbers until they were officially published later in August. And by pre-releasing the earnings today, AMC is now able to talk to any debt holders that maybe weren't privy to that information as part of the debt restructuring process to get any of those last remaining ones on board with the new deal. Now, I know some of you were upset then once that news was released that there was an immediate halt, even in pre-market. But that is the rules, guys, and I have FINRA's website up here just to read a couple points to you. Listing exchanges have the authority to halt trading based on their evaluation of a given announcement. Generally, the more likely the announcement is to affect the stock price positively or negatively, the more likely the exchange is to call for a trading halt pending dissemination of news by the company. That allows basically everybody in the market a few moments to read through the news before they resume trading. That is the exchange's prerogative, and Those are the rules. If you don't like the rules, don't invest in the stock market. AMC's preliminary results were materially different than any of us were expecting. And I, for one, was glad to have a few minutes to read through it and try and dissect exactly why the numbers were so different than expectations. Again, those are the rules. Know the rules before you step on the field, ladies and gentlemen. All right, let's go through these numbers from AMC. Total revenues for the quarter ending June 30th to be approximately $1.03 billion. This is pretty much right in line with Wall Street expectations. The net loss for the quarter is anticipated to be negative $32 million, which gives us a loss per share of approximately negative 10 cents. That number right there is very different than what any of us were expecting. And we needed a few minutes to figure out exactly why on revenues that came in as expected, why the net loss was so much better than expected, at least on paper. And we'll get into that in just a second. Final bit of news on the last bullet point here at the bottom about cash and cash equivalents. Coming in at $770 million. Eric Handler from Roth MKM. What say you, sir? I called you a week or so ago and you told me you were convinced it was going to be only $330 million on the balance sheet. I tried to have a minute on the phone with you to explain to you why your model might be incorrect, Eric, because maybe you forgot about that $250 million cash raise, but no, you said you had that counted in. I told you guys that the cash on the balance sheet was going to come in at $650 million or higher, and sure enough, 770 million bucks. We'll talk about free cash flow and net cash flow in just a second, but I'm very happy with that cash on the balance sheet. Let's look at the spreadsheet and see how my numbers stacked up. And I want to show you what I think is exactly going to be reported on the income statement now that AMC gave us some hints here with data down at the bottom of this press release. We don't have a full income statement, but I can kind of recreate what I think it's going to tell us here on August 2nd when they report after hours. And by the way, I already have that live stream scheduled. If you want to listen into that call with me on August 2nd, please join me on that live stream. Looking at the spreadsheet on the left-hand column with the dark green header, that is the actual numbers from AMC based on what I was able to pull from today's press release. The three columns to the next of it was my good, medium, bad range for what I expected AMC to report in August. The middle column was my guess. I said, I'm going with that number. So I forecast a total revenue of $1.06 billion. We came in at $1.03 billion. And I think, guys, if you're trying to, as a YouTuber, sit here and guess a company's revenue over $1 billion and you can come within $30 million, the spreadsheet is working pretty good, wouldn't you say? 2 weeks ago when I made my first video for you guys telling you what I thought the numbers were going to come in for Q2, I had the OpEx as a percentage of revenue at 35%. And then subsequent to that, I had that phone call with Eric over at Roth MKM. And I said, you know what, Tony, let's be a little bit more pessimistic like Eric and increase the OpEx to 40 to 41%. Because the revenue was a little bit light. The box office was a little bit light. Maybe the OpEx as a percentage of revenue is 40% instead of 35%. So I made a update video for you guys last week. Well, guess which one ended up being correct? The first one. I should have stuck with the 35%, because you can see here on this spreadsheet now I have 35%. Here was the 40%. I have 35% in the column from AMC. And that makes all of these numbers work with the other data that they gave us today. It makes it work exactly to 10 cents negative loss per share. Amazing how that works. I should have trusted my gut. And we will double check all of this, obviously, on August 2nd when we get the official numbers from AMC. There was one other number in here that I needed to adjust to make everything work. It is a number that I never try and forecast because it's really impossible for me to do, and that is when the company has a gain or a loss due to the extinguishment of debt. When they do a debt for equity exchange during the quarter, you're going to get some adjustment to other income. And I had it forecast at $20 million. With the numbers that AMC gave us, it's actually going to come in around $105 million gain from extinguishment of debt. Now, that is a non-cash gain. What that means, guys, in simple terms, is it vastly improves the net loss and the net loss per share, negative 10 cents instead of negative 40 or 50 or 60 that I was expecting. It vastly improves those numbers. That's why initially when I saw the numbers this morning, I was like, oh my gosh, this is fantastic. But then when I had a minute to read into it, I was like, oh, it's a non-cash gain. So it's an accounting thing. And that's why Wall Street was really not as thrilled as we initially were. It looks like a big beat, but it's a non-cash gain. To wrap this up, talking about the cash position, AMC had $660 million on the Q1 balance sheet. We know they raised $250 million extra at the beginning of Q2, and they are telling us that they expect to end Q3 with $770 million. That implies a net cash burn of $140 million. I unfortunately could not reconcile that down to the dollar, so I'm not going to go over that today. We'll take a look at it on AMC's earnings release when they give that to us on August 2nd. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up now. I'm going to put a tweet up on the screen for you guys to read, again related to the Red Lobster video yesterday, because I'm still getting the trolls trying to squawk at me on Twitter and such, YouTube, because they don't understand that MovieCo is a wholly owned subsidiary of AMC, therefore wholly owned by us, the shareholders. I'm not going to go through it again. It's a waste of my time. But if you need some extra convincing, I put some extra convincing bullet points together for you. I am Tony Denaro. Thank you for watching. Please read if you believe in Red Lobster.
I ain't even playing, got a really bad habit. If it moves, gotta grab it. Fuse like a magnet, lose, won't have it till I'm doomed in a casket. I ain't playing, got a weird mind. If you work 8 hours, I'ma work 9. If the shit tastes sour, you should taste mine. I'ma stay in power for a long time. Get up, nah, I ain't a quitter. Toss me the ball, I'm a really big hitter. Big picture, I'm a straight killer. Rising the song to the highest bidder. Got juice, got gas, I'ma move fast. New shoes, new tracks, like who's that? I'm new, come back, better than last. Yeah, it's a new me, never gonna look back. Never gonna look back. Cause damn, I was built to last. You move slow and I move